Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyanam Gunanavasya Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Praptasya Gunanavasya Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Mahaprabhu Kirtananita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Senam Mahaprabhu Kirtananita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Shri Vigrara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramajanado Shri Dana Nityanana Joktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasado Satana Truptan Haribhakta Shanga Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasado Satana Truptan Kridaiva Trupte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanarabindam Shirarikama Dabayara Para Madhurya Lila Gunarupanam Shirarikama Para Madhurya Lila Pratikshanasva Dhanalalupasa Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Ne kunjayuno Ratikeri Siddhai Jajali Veri Jokte Apekshaniya Ne Tatratidaksha Atibalabhasya Bande Gurashi Charanarabindam Sakcha Dharipena Samasta Shastri Luktasta Tava Vataiva Sadavi Kinto Praborja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Swami Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachattari Shata Dine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachattari Shata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Nama Krishna Jadavaye Nama Jadavaye Madhavaye Keshavaye Nama Gopal Govindara Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Pramanande Haribo. Jai Vishwapara Paramita Prabhaja Dachari Suttara Sajishima Ishtavange Sabachana Vinna Bhakti Viranta Swamara Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Bhividi Samstapakachara Vaishnav Siramani Patita Pavana Shira Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatra Gunat Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय अनंत कुल वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद नश्म गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरण अवतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihat Ndanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Gopodhan ki jai. Shri Brajabhim Vrindavan Mathurdham ki jai. Deloship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Shri Mayapur Navadip Eka Chakradham ki jai. Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smasvadra Devi सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना कर सिंहरे भगवान की जय जगंगा माय जमुना माय की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय श्री मथुरा रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताई गौरी प्रमानंदे हरि बोल all glory to the assembly bodies all glory to the assembly bodies all glory to the assembly bodies all glories all glories all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Namaste Nadase Gaya. Namaste Nadase Gaya. Pralada da 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 ine Hiranyakasipu Bhaksha Stilatanka Nakalaye Ito nisingo parata nisingan Jata jata jamita ta nisingan Bair nisingo Hruday nisingan Narasingha Madhim Sharanam Prapade Pavakara Kamala Vare Naka Adavata Singha Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanabhinga Kesavadeta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Tava Parakama Naka Advaita Singa Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanavinga Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jaya Nishingare Jaya Nishingare Nishingare Jaya Nishingare Jaya Narahari Jaya Narahari Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Pralanara Pralanara Bhakta Prahlad Sila Pralanara Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pata Sarvighnashana Kanishingare Bhagwan ki Jai Bhakta Shrista Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai Nittai Gaurari Premanande Haribo Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
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 हे तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वांछा पूर्ण
हे तुम्हार शरण तारा वांछा पूर्ण
कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावनवासी
तुम्हें कृपा करे करे वृंदावनवासी
मोरा विलास कुंज दियो
विलास कुंज दियावा
नयने रिभो सदा युगल रूपरासी
अलिनयने रिव सदा जुगल रूपरासी
ए निवेदन दरो सकीरानुगत करो
हे निवेदन दर सखीरानुगत करो
ए निवेदन दरो सकीरानुगत करो
हे निवेदन दर सखीरानुगत करो
सेवादि कर दिए करो निज दासी
सेवादि कर दिए करो निज दासी
दीन कृष्ण दासी को ये नमो रहोई
दीन कृष्ण रस को हे नम
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदय न भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदाय नवासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदाय न भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदाय नवासी
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि सत्पापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे।
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी।
जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी
जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी।
नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। गौर प्रमानंदे हरि बोल। Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavya James of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always stream in love Shri Shri Radha, Govind, Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krastakam Ki Jai. Chitodapanam Bhavamada Vidya Madhu Jivan Ananda Gurnatam Padipadam Gurnam Prasadam Shri Krishna Sankirtan Nam Nam Karudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarandaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauri Tvishe. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart with the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fiery condition of life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays that benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause at devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, somehow or other I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if sunders me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let's offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the following conditions.
Vanchakalpa Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyanam Jana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachkamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamani Ste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varsavanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apisidanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambode Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Sri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Tuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Damami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surator Bhangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsarvaswa Padambujo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vinduranya Kalpadrumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna Panchatattva Mahamantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by his plenary expansion, Shri Nityananda Prabhu, his incarnation, Shri Advaita Prabhu, his external potency, his internal potency, Shri Gadadhar Prabhu, and his marginal potency, Srivas Prabhu. He is in the midst of them as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know that Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by these other tattvas. Therefore, our obeisances to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are complete when we say, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. As preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement, we first offer our obeisances to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting this Panchatattva mantra. Then we say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There are 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, but these are not considered in the chanting of the Panchatattva mantra, namely, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is known as the Mahavadanya-avatara, the most magnanimous incarnation, for he does not consider the offenses of the fallen souls. Thus, to derive the full benefit from chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We must first take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, learn the Panchatattva mantra, and then chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That will be very effective. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The transcendental vibration established by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the sublime method of reviving our Krishna consciousness. As living spiritual souls, we are all originally Krishna conscious entities, but due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now polluted by the material atmosphere. The material atmosphere in which we are now living is called Maya, or illusion. Maya means that which is not. And what is this illusion? The illusion is that we are all trying to be lords of material nature, while actually we are under the grip of her stringent laws. When a servant artificially tries to imitate the all-powerful master, this is called illusion. In this polluted concept of life, we are all trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in her complexities. Therefore, although we are engaged in a hard struggle to conquer nature, we are ever more dependent on her. This illusory struggle against material nature can be stopped at once by revival of our Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This consciousness is the original energy of the living entity. When we hear transcendental vibration, this consciousness is revived, and this process is recommended for this age by authorities. By practical experience also, one can perceive that by chanting the Mahamantra, or the great chanting for deliverance, one can at once feel transcendental ecstasy coming through from the spiritual stratum. And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of senses, mind, and intelligence, one is situated on the transcendental plane. This chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is directly enacted from the spiritual platform, and thus this sound vibration surpasses all lower strata of consciousness, namely sensual, mental, and intellectual. There is no need, therefore, to understand the language of the mantra, nor is there any need for mental speculation or any intellectual adjustment for chanting the Maha Mantra. It springs automatically from the spiritual platform, and as such, anyone can take part in the chanting without any previous qualification and dance in ecstasy. We have seen this practically. Even a child can take part in the chanting, or even a dog can take part in it. Of course, for one who is too entangled in material life, it takes a little more time to come to the standard point. But even such a materially engrossed man is raised to the spiritual platform very quickly. When the mantra is chanted by a pure devotee of the Lord in love, it has the greatest efficacy on the hearers, and as such, this chanting should be heard from the lips of a pure devotee of the Lord, so that immediate effects can be achieved. As far as possible, chanting from the lips of non-devotees should be avoided, just as milk touched by the lips of a serpent should be avoided because of its poisonous effects. The word Hara is a form of addressing the energy of the Lord, and the words Krishna and Rama are forms of addressing the Lord himself. Both Krishna and Rama mean the supreme pleasure, And Hara means the supreme pleasure energy of the Lord, changed to Hare in the vocative. The supreme pleasure energy of the Lord helps us reach the Lord. The material energy called Maya is also one of the multi-energies of the Lord, and we, the living entities, are also an energy, the marginal energy of the Lord. The living entities are described as superior to material energy. When this superior energy is in contact with the inferior energy, an incompatible situation arises. But when the superior marginal energy is in contact with the superior energy called Hara, the living entity is established in its happy, normal condition. These three words, namely Hare, Krishna, and Rama, are transcendental seeds of the Mahamantra. The chanting is a spiritual call for the Lord and his internal energy, Hara, to give protection to the conditioned soul. This chanting is exactly like the genuine cry of a child for its mother. Mother Hara helps the devotee achieve the grace of the Supreme Father, Hari, or Krishna, and the Lord reveals himself to the devotee who chants the mantra sincerely. No other means of spiritual realization, therefore, is as effective in this age as chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Mahamantra Hare Krishna Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, verse number 26. Tatapi nat amanas, tatapi nat matamanasya, nata nataya natitam, paravare yata rupe, janinam te twarupina. Tata api, in spite of that. Nata manasya, of the one who is asking for. Nata, O Lord. Nataya, please award. Natitam, as it is desired. Para avare, in the matter of mundane and transcendental. Yata, as it is. Rupe, in the form. Janiyam, may it be known. Te, your. Tu, but. Arupina, one who is formless. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. In spite of that, my Lord, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form at all. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, we will go on to the next verse. Yatatma maya yogena nana sak yupabrin hitam vilupan visrijan granan viparad atmanam atmana. Yata, as much as. Atma, own. Maya, potency. Yogena, by a combination. Nana, various. Shakti, energy. Upabrimhitam, by combination and permutation. Vilupam, in the matter of annihilation. Visrajan, in the matter of generation. Grinan, in the matter of acceptance. Bibrat, in the matter of maintenance. Atmanam, own self. Atmana, by the self. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. And please inform me how you, by your own self, manifest different energies for annihilation, generation, acceptance, and maintenance by combination and permutation. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The whole manifestation is the Lord Himself by diffusion of His different energies only, namely the internal, external, and marginal. Just as the sunlight is the manifestation of the energy of the sun planet, such energy is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord, just as the sunshine is simultaneously one with and different from the sun planet. The energies are acting by combination and permutation, by the indication of the Lord, and the acting agents like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are also different incarnations of the Lord. In other words, there is nothing but the Lord, and still the Lord is different from all such manifestive activities. How is it so? Will be explained later on. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Well, I'm going to go back to yesterday's purport, and then we'll continue. There's some very important points that can still be discussed from yesterday's purport. So, it says, the impersonalists recommend that one should become desireless, and others recommend banishing desires altogether. So that's the understanding of the Mayavadis and the Buddhists. That is impossible. No one can banish desires altogether because desiring is a living symptom. One can banish, without having desires, a living entity would be dead, which he is not. Therefore, living conditions and desire go together. Perfection of desires may be achieved when one desires to serve the Lord, and the Lord also desires that every living entity banish all personal desires and cooperate with his desires. That is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. And Brahmaji accepted or agreed to this proposal, and therefore he is given the responsible post of creating generations in the vacant universe. Oneness with the Lord, therefore, consists of dovetailing one's desires with the desires of the Supreme Lord. That makes for the perfection of all desires. Now, this is a very important point, and this is, by understanding this point, it's a turning point in our life. And there's further information about this in the 14th chapter. 14th chapter, beginning with verse 19, 20, 21, and 22 to 25. So I'm going to go over this because it's very, very important for advancing in spiritual life. So 14th chapter, text 19 says, Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yadadrastanu pasyati gunebhyascha param viti madbhavam so digachati. And it says, when one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. Now, if you try to explain this to a materialistic person, they would say, I don't agree with this at all. You're telling me that I'm not the doer? But I am the doer. I'm making so many decisions, and I'm doing it. And many of my decisions are good. I've made a lot of money. I have a nice house, and cars, and prestige. How can you say I'm not doing? Well, this is something difficult to understand, but it's a fact. One who properly sees that in all activities, no other performer is at work than these modes of nature. That means Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas is controlling people all of us. And he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes. He attains my spiritual nature. Well, there's two major points. One is to understand that in material life, we're being forced to do everything by the modes of material nature. But that Krishna himself is transcendental to him. Now, if you read Mayavad philosophy, they make you accept that Krishna is also under the modes of material nature. You see how vicious they are. And therefore, they preclude any possibility of being liberated from the cycle of birth and death just by that insistence. Now, you cannot really be an effective preacher against the Mayavadis unless you understand this point, that Krishna is transcendental to the modes, and that they don't accept that. They think that Krishna is subject to the modes also, just like everybody else. Okay, so then, now coming back to the first point, we are all, in material life, we are all controlled by the modes of material nature. We are not actually acting independent, being forced to act. So in the purport, it says, one can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting the spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn the science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. So, let me read that again. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn the science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Science of activities, a very nice point Prabhupada is making here. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. By the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, a living entity can know of the spiritual position, of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the material modes of nature. He is helpless, being in the grip of these modes, but when he can see his real position, then he can attain to the transcendental platform. Having the scope for spiritual life. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act. There it is, right there. We are all being forced to act. We're not the doer of our activities. Now, that doesn't mean we're not responsible for what we do. It just means that we're being forced by these modes of material nature to do things every day. And unless we get out of this terrible situation, we keep making mistakes, and we keep getting entangled in material life, and we cannot get free of the cycle of birth and death. There it is. So, what do we do? That's going to be explained here. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he is situated in a particular type of body conducted by some particular mode of material nature. What is that particular type of body? Well, someone could say, well, this body is Latino. And we have La Raza, our people. And we're different than the whiteys. And we're different than the blackies. And we're different from the yellowies. We are special. We are part of the Raza, the race of the Latinos. Right? And we were given a raw deal by the Spaniards, the whiteys from Europe. And also we're given a raw deal by the blacks and the yellows. Right? So that identification with the body makes one completely controlled by the modes of material nature. And we see it all the time. You have Latino gangs fighting with black gangs, and Latino gangs and black gangs fighting with the white supremacists. And they're all completely controlled by the modes of material nature and by the particular type of body that they identify with. And there's no hope for such people to get free from the cycle of birth and death. And in India, you have the same thing. You know, the Andhra Pradeshis think they're superior to the Telanganas. And the Muslims think they're superior to the Hindus. And the Hindus think they're superior to the Muslims. And the communists think everybody's nonsense, you know, and they should all become communists like us. And the Christians think we're going to take over India. We already got so many parts of it now, and we're going to take it over completely. And then also, so it just goes on and on. They're all acting under the modes of material nature. And they think, and then the Brahmanas think they're superior to the Dalits and this thing and that thing. It's unending. It's not just the Latinos and the blacks and the whites. It's all over the world. It's like that. So, therefore, unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding, he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. For one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases. So, what does this mean exactly? Well, I have my own experience to talk about. When I joined the movement, of course, I've said before, I had to give up everything that I normally did, and I had to give up things that I was going to do, and completely surrendered to going out on Sankirtan every day, and chanting, dancing, and also giving out some prasadam, and then trying to convince people to take books, and coming back to the temple, we have Aarti, and prasadam, and class. And that was it. That was our life, right? I gave up everything else. And I enjoyed doing it, especially the chanting and the dancing. It was very nice. We could go out every day, rain or shine, chant and dance. Everybody else is worrying about paying the bills and going here, viz, 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 viz. The cars going by real fast, and everyone has so many things to do. All we're doing is just chanting and dancing. And it was a wonderful experience. So, this is related also to the whole discussion of Ramananda Rai and Lord Chaitanya. This is why Lord Chaitanya said no, 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 no 5 times to Ramananda Rai. Because each one of those things he said no to, he considered them to be still in the material world. It's only when Ramananda Rai started talking about Jnane Prayasam Utapasya Namanta Eva, sitting down, no matter what position you're in, you just sit down and hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita spoken by genuine devotees. There he said, now, okay, he said, that's now I'm not rejecting it. That's good, but say some more. And he does. He says a lot more. So we see how the Varnashram system and offering everything to Lord Vishnu, and they in Kali Yuga they can be corrupted. They can be corrupted. We'll go over that more specifically in a minute. But see, all this is connected. This verse and the whole discussion of Ramananda Rai and Lord Chaitanya. So it says here, with the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding, he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. For one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases. See things as they are, that's the point. We're not seeing things as they are. We are still under the grip of Maya, even though we've been given the chance to get free. So, the more we advance in becoming free, the more we become real devotees engaged in pure devotional service. So the next verse says, Gunan etana trin dehi deha samud bhavan janma mityu jara dukkhair vimukto amritam asnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Well, that's what was happening by going out every day on Sankirtan and preaching and chanting our Gayatris and chanting our rounds and waking up early, going to sleep early, drinking hot milk with banana right before we would take rest, and having breakfast and lunch and dinner, and then hot milk with bananas and cinnamon also, and hearing Bhagavad Gita all the time. I used to carry my Bhagavad Gita with me all the time. I had a bag. It was on my left-hand side. I was always with my Bhagavad Gita. Anytime there was a spare moment, I would try and read it. And then having the Sunday feast, the whole thing was ecstasy. We completely stopped everything else, all the other plans we had. Of course, things became a little different once I got married, and that was a personal choice. And when you're married, you have to work. In other words, you have to earn money honestly. Or husband and wife can live in the temple, but they live separately, and they continue their service in the temple. But you cannot live husband and wife together in a temple. You can live outside. Or if the temple has facilities, again, you live outside, but they give you the facility of an apartment or a little house in a big complex of devotional service. But in general, grihastas have to work. They cannot earn a living by doing Sankirtan. Prabhupada forbade that. Or if they live separately, then they can go out on Sankirtan, but they have to give all the money to the temple. But they can't, like, be married, have their own place, and go out on Sankirtan and keep either part or all of the money. That's not allowed, right? So then that means you have to get a job somehow or earn money somehow or other. And in your spare time, you engage in devotional service. Okay, so then the next verse, and well, in the purport it says, how can one stay in a transcendental position even in this body in full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. That's 14:20. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Although one is within this material body, by his advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service and Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. Okay. And what happens when you do that? You begin to taste nectar and enjoy nectar even in this life. That's a fact. Okay, the text 21. Arjuna Vacha. Kaya lingais trin gunan etan atito bhavati prabhu kim achara katam chaitans trin gunan ativartate. Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature? Thank God Arjuna is asking all these questions. They're all very significant questions. And Krishna says, translation, Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature? So this is important. How do you recognize a person who's actually transcendental? That's an extremely important question, right? How do we recognize someone who is actually transcendentally situated? Purport, Prabhupada says, in this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? The second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, there's no possibility of showing the symptoms. So, all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. Now, these are the most important questions for a devotee. How do I recognize if someone is actually transcendentally situated? And what are the symptoms? And then what are the activities? Not just the symptoms now. What are the activities that such a person does? Okay. So, in the next verse, 22 to 25. Shri Bhagavan uvacha prakasam cha pavritim cha moham eva cha pandava nadvesti sampravritani na nivritani kankshati udasina vad asino gunaryo na vichalyate gunavartanta iti evam yovatistati nengate samaduka sukha swasta samalostrasmakanchana tulya priya priyo dhiras tulya nindatma samstuti manapamanayos tulyas tulyo mitraripaksayo sarvaramba parityagi gunatita sa uchyate. This is very important verses if you want to make spiritual advancement. If you don't want to make spiritual advancement, you can walk out. It's okay. But those who really want to make spiritual advancement, stick around for the ride back to Godhead. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination. What does that mean? Illumination means he who does not hate sitting down like this every day and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, because that's going to illuminate, it's going to light up the mind with transcendental knowledge. He who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear. In other words, we should not be in the duality of love and hate. We should be patient and what you call perseverant. That's a beautiful word, perseverant. Look that up. Perseverant, something like that. Perseverant. It's an excellent word. We should all become perseverant. You find it? What does it say?
Persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success.
There you go. Despite difficulty or delays in achieving your goal. That should be a tremendous quality of a devotee. Perseverant. Prabhupada was perseverant. He had to put up with so much nonsense. Arjuna submitted 3 different questions, and the Lord answers them one after another. In these verses, Krishna first indicates that a person transcendentally situated has no envy and does not hanker for anything. When a living entity stays in this material world, embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the 3 modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. Whoa, that's a good word, neutral. He should engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification. But when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. What does that mean exactly? That means that Krishna consciousness acts on the level of thinking, feeling, and willing. Without Krishna consciousness, we're subject to the laws of material nature and the modes of material nature. Our thinking, feeling, and willing is completely under the modes of material nature. It has nothing to do with spiritual knowledge. But when we receive spiritual knowledge, then we can control the thinking, feeling, and willing. And as soon as our mind sort of deviates from Krishna consciousness, immediately we can catch ourselves before it goes to action by remembering Prabhupada's instructions. Just like yesterday I was listening to a class that I've listened to many times already, but every time I listen to it, it's like the first time for me. And in this class he says, the Goswamis conquered sleep. And materialists, they are buying very nice beds and trying to sleep more. This is a big difference between devotee and a non-devotee. Devotee doesn't want to sleep more. To maintain the body, one needs some sleep, of course, it's necessary. But the Goswamis reduced it down to 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day, and even that sometimes they didn't do. They were so enthralled by devotional service. So a symptom of a devotee, there are two big symptoms. One, it reduces eating, sleeping, mating, and defending to whatever is prescribed by Krishna consciousness. And also, it can go to almost zero, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And then secondly, a devotee is very careful not to waste 1 second, not to waste 1 second of his life or her life in non-Krishna, un-Krishna conscious or non-Krishna conscious activity or thought. Those are the two major symptoms of an advanced devotee. They reduce almost to nil eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And number two, they're very conscious not to waste 1 second. It's like there was a great yogi, and his name was Gautama Muni, and he was always chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One time Narada Muni saw him on the bank of the Ganges, and he said, Gautama Muni, why don't you build yourself a small kutir, a small hut for chanting? And he was saying Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He heard what Narada Muni said, and right away he said, no, I don't want to waste even 1 second. He said, but wait a minute. When it rains, you're in the rain. He said, no, I can stand under a tree. He said, but still the water can come through the tree. He said, that's all right. He said, well, why don't you just build yourself a small hut so the rain doesn't come? He said, no, I don't want to waste 1 second. Wow. You see to what level the devotee is willing to go? This chanting of Hare Krishna is so important. He doesn't want to even waste 1 second to build himself a little hut. But Krishna has given different possibilities. You can sit under a tree and chant. It's not as bad as sitting in the open. Okay, so therefore it says, when the living entity stays in this material world, embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the three modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification. But when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The dictations of the material body, we're getting those dictations every day. Eat this, sleep more, don't chant all your rounds, don't chant your Gayatris, don't go out on Sankirtan, it's too cold, don't do this, don't do that. The body is dictating to us all day long. Engage in illicit activities. It's okay to take a little vacation. You need some downtime. All these things are being dictated by the body. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that when you wake up in the morning, you should take an old shoe and beat your head 100 times. And all day long, you should work very hard in Krishna consciousness, so much so that as soon as it comes down to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, you fall asleep immediately because you're exhausted. Right? So, this beating your head with the old shoe, he didn't even say a new shoe, he said an old shoe. It's necessary. But how do you beat your head with an old shoe? You immediately, as soon as you wake up, you say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And immediately pray to Krishna, please give me the strength to get through this day. And beginning right now, 2:30 or 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, you want to have that strength to be able to right away remember who you are, because for 3 or 5 or 6 hours, you forgot who you are. And we're dreaming, I'm the king of Burma. But now you wake up and say, wait a minute, no, I'm just this is devotee, and I got to take a bath, and I got to get dressed, and I got to go to the temple, and I got to chant my rounds, and I got to do this, and that's who I am. I'm not the king of Burma that I was seeing in my dream. I'm this guy that has a lot of duties, because I promised that I would follow the 4 regulative principles, actually 8 regulative principles. Chant your rounds, regularly attend class, hear Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, only eat prasadam, and come regularly to the temple and perform devotional service, as well as giving up all those bad habits. So, he says, one does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act, but as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does he become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. Thus, transcendentally situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. No, you don't have to try and become free of the modes of material nature. You just keep yourself engaged always in devotional service, and the modes of material nature will stop acting on you. That means every second of the day should be engaged in serving the Lord. Now, someone will say, wait a minute, I have to go to Microsoft and spend time with all these karmis. How can I be engaged in Krishna's service? Well, we've explained that before 100 times. There's 2 ways of serving. You serve by your work, or you serve by the result of your work. So you might have a job in which you're selling posters of Krishna consciousness, right? That's the way you're earning your money. Or like Kolavacha Sridhar, he was earning money by making little cups out of leaves, and also he would sell, if he had a little carpet, which was an old piece of cloth, and he would sit on it, and he'd have 1 or 2 squashes and a few maybe tomatoes, and then he would have his cups that he made, and he would sew them, And you have to dry the leaf first, and then you have to sew it and make it into a little cup or a dish. And that's the way he would earn his money. He would earn about one rupee a day, and 50 paisa he would give for worshipping Ganga, and the other 50 paisa he lived on. Imagine that. And Lord Chaitanya would regularly come and see him because he was actually a pure devotee. His whole purpose in life was to serve Ganga Mata and chant Hare Krishna and live very simply. Now, we can't all live like that, but you get the idea. Either you preach by your work or you preach by the result of your work. So that means you're always engaged. If you're going to offer the major part of what you earn to spreading Krishna consciousness, that's also preaching. That's also engaging in devotional service. Okay, so one does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act, but as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does one become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. Thus, transcendently situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. You're automatically free by always engaging in devotional service. The next question concerns the dealings of a transcendentally situated person. The materially situated person is affected by so-called honor and dishonor offered to the body, but the transcendentally situated person is not affected by such false honor and dishonor. He performs his duty in Krishna consciousness and does not mind whether a man honors or dishonors him. He accepts things that are favorable for his duty in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he has no necessity of anything material, either a stone or gold. He takes everyone as his dear friend who helps him in his execution of Krishna consciousness, and he does not hate his so-called enemy. He is equally disposed and sees everything on an equal level because he knows perfectly well that he has nothing to do with material existence. Social and political issues do not affect him because he knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbances. He does not attempt anything for his own sake. He can attempt anything for Krishna, but for his personal self, he does not attempt anything. By such behavior, one becomes actually transcendentally situated. There you go, folks. This is the all-encompassing purport to teach us these three most important things in life. That is, how to recognize a person that's transcendentally situated, and what are the activities of what are the qualities of such a person, and what are the activities of such a person. There you go. You know those three things, and you will be liberated. And this is further explained in Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, verse number 11. You see how everything is connected. And it says, 5:11. And it says, Kayana manasa buddhya kevalar indriyar api yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyakbatma sudaye. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses only for the purpose of purification. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When one acts in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna, and that's what the gopis do, they're always pleasing the transcendental senses of Krishna by dressing nicely for him, by chanting nicely for him, by cooking nicely for him, and offering the food nicely to him, and always remembering him, and always Krishna conscious, 100%. So when one acts in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna, any action, whether of the body, mind, intelligence, or even the senses, is purified of material contamination. There are no material reactions resulting from the activities of a Krishna conscious person. Therefore, purified activities, which are generally called sadachara, can be easily performed by acting in Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami, in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.187, describes this as follows: Iha yasya harer dasya karmana manasajira akilasvapi avastasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna, with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. Or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also say, Pranay Artha Diyavacha, that one should serve Krishna with one's life and energy, with one's money, with one's intelligence, and with one's words. Pranay Artha Diyavacha. So then it says, such a transcendently situated person, even in the body, even in the material world, he has no false ego, for he does not believe that he is this material body, or that he possesses the body. He knows that he is not this body, and that this body does not belong to him. So, this is an important point, because as we say, beauty is only skin deep. So someone is a black beauty, someone is a white beauty, someone's a yellow beauty, but that beauty is very, very tenuous. It's not going to last forever. It's going to change very rapidly, and eventually one becomes ugly and dies. So this identification with the body is the source of the false ego. So someone can be, like I said, Latino, and they say, oh, I'm a member of La Raza, our race. That's complete nonsense, right? Or someone can be, who knows, they can be a Fijian, and they think the Fijians are better than the native people of Fiji. And they think that the Fijian Hindus are better than the Indian Hindus. They come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, right? Or someone can be, a South Pacific person, what do you call them? Samoas, yeah. Can be Samoans. And they have names, or like even in Hawaii, they have a special name for the whiteys. I forget what it is now. And, huh? Howie? Howie, like Howie. Oh, Howley. Yeah, like a wolf. You see, they have all these names, right? And they're all based on the so-called superiority of their race or their bodies. Like Samoans got these big bodies. Right? They love their national food is pig, roasted pig. Without roasted pig, they cannot have a festival. Right? So, and then the Hindus, and then the Muslims, and this thing. It's all over the world. It's the same thing. It's all bodily identification. It's all false ego. So then it says, he has no false ego, for he does not believe that he is this material body, or that he possesses the body. He knows that he is not this body, and that this body does not belong to him. He himself belongs to Krishna, and the body too belongs to Krishna. Now, this is a very important point. Who does this body belong to? If you tell him your body doesn't belong to you, say, why, are you crazy? Of course it belongs to me. What kind of philosophy do you have, man? You guys are crazy. No, not crazy. So let's look at Adi Lila, chapter 5, is it? Let me see here. Adi Lila. I might be looking in the wrong chapter. Yeah, I'm looking in the wrong chapter, chapter 4. So the gopis, they say, look, I want to do everything to please Krishna. Now, whatever affection we see, the gopis show for their own bodies, know it for certain to be only for the sake of Lord Krishna. Purport. This is Adi Lila, chapter 4, verse number 181. The selfless love of Godhead exhibited by the gopis cannot have any parallel. We should not, therefore, misunderstand the carefulness of the gopis in their personal decoration. The gopis dressed themselves as beautifully as possible just to make Krishna happy by seeing them. They had no ulterior desires. They dedicated their bodies and everything they possessed to the service of Sri Krishna, taking it for granted that their bodies were meant for his enjoyment. They dressed themselves with the understanding that Krishna would be happy by seeing and touching them. The gopis think, next verse, 182. The gopis think, I have offered this body to Lord Krishna. He is its owner, and it brings him enjoyment. Krishna finds joy in seeing and touching this body. It is for this reason that they cleanse and decorate their bodies. And Krishna speaks to Arjuna, O Arjuna, there is no greater receptacles of deep love for me than the gopis, who cleanse and decorate their bodies because they consider them mine. Now, Prabhupada once was explaining about why women go topless and bottomless. That means they wear these really high skirts or dresses, that comes up almost to their belly button, not quite. And then they wear these very low dresses that show, their split or most of their breasts. Now, he said, why are they walking around topless and bottomless? He said, they're inviting you to come and enjoy their vagina. He said it like that. And that is the point. That's why you see nowadays when many women just walk almost like naked, right? So that's different than why the gopis dress themselves. By the way, they don't dress themselves in mini dresses. They dress themselves very nicely with beautiful saris, and they also, because they consider that their body belongs to Krishna, it doesn't belong to them. This is a different conception of life. And unless we can accommodate this type of philosophy, we never actually become free of the false ego. And then it says, there's another wonderful feature of the emotion of the gopis. Its power is beyond the comprehension of the intelligence. When the gopis see Lord Krishna, they derive unbounded bliss, although they have no desire for such pleasure. The gopis taste a pleasure 10 million times greater than the pleasure Lord Krishna derives from seeing them. Purport. The wonderful characteristics of the gopis are beyond imagination. They have no desire for personal satisfaction. Yet, when Krishna is happy by seeing them, that happiness of Krishna makes the gopis 1,000,000 times more happy than Krishna himself. The gopis, next verse, the gopis have no inclination for their own enjoyment, and their joy increases. That is indeed a contradiction. For this contradiction, I see only one solution. The joy of the gopis lies in the joy of their beloved Krishna. So this is Krishnadas Kaviraj speaking. Anyway, you get the idea. I won't continue there. This is extremely important if we want to become Krishna conscious. We have to understand that this body doesn't belong to us. It belongs to Krishna, and it should only be used in his service. That's completely opposite of the materialistic concept. The materialistic concept, this body belongs to me, and everything I'm doing is to please my senses. So, whether it's a man or a woman, they both think like that. And if their senses are not pleased, then there could very easily be a divorce and separation because they're not happy. So this is a very, very fundamental principle of Krishna consciousness, that the body does not belong to me. It belongs to Krishna. It should be only used in Krishna's service. Okay, so 5th chapter, 11th verse is very significant. Therefore, to finish that, and then we'll stop. What time is it now? Huh? 7:20. Okay. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. He has no false ego, for he does not believe that he is this material body, or that he possesses the body. He knows that he is not this body, and that this body does not belong to him. He himself belongs to Krishna, and the body too belongs to Krishna. When he applies everything produced of the body, mind, intelligence, words, life, wealth, etc., whatever he may have within his possession, to Krishna's service, he is at once dovetailed with Krishna. He is one with Krishna and is devoid of the false ego that leads one to believe that he is the body, etc. This is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Are there any questions? So after the Aarti, did you do your homework? Good. Okay. And did anybody else? Okay. So after the Aarti, we'll read the homeworks. Okay. Any questions? Okay, no questions. No answers. Haribol, thank you. Oh yeah, there's one thing I forgot. All right, we'll just continue a short minute. This is further explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana sarvar gunais tatra samasates tata. Harava bhaktasya kuto mahadgana mano ratanasati tahavato bayi. It's a very important verse. It's quoted in Bhagavad Gita and the purports. And it says, but this is a alternate translation of it, which makes it much more deeply understood. All the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Unalloyed devotion means no vacation. 24 hours a day, one is engaged in service to Krishna. They don't like vacation. They don't like to be away from Krishna's service, right? On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As explained in the next verse, Krishna is the original source of all living entities. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15.7, wherein Krishna says, Mamaivamsa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, manaksastan indriyani, prakritistani karsati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. All living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore, when they revive their original Krishna consciousness, they possess all the good qualities of Krishna in a small quantity. When one engages himself in the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, one's heart becomes purified, and he immediately understands his relationship with Krishna. He then revives his original quality of Krishna consciousness. In the Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, there is a description of some of the qualities of devotees. For example, Sri Pandita Haridasa is described as being very well behaved, tolerant, peaceful, magnanimous, and grave. In addition, he spoke very sweetly. His endeavors were very pleasing. He was always patient. He respected everyone. He always worked for everyone's benefit. His mind was free of duplicity, and he was completely devoid of all malicious activities. These are all originally qualities of Krishna, and when one becomes a devotee, they automatically become manifest. Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that all good qualities become manifest in the body of a Vaishnava, and that only by the presence of these good qualities can one distinguish a Vaishnava from a non-Vaishnava. Krishnadas Kaviraj lists the following 26 good qualities of a Vaishnava. He is very kind to everyone. He does not make anyone his enemy. He is truthful. He is equal to everyone. No one can find any fault in him. He is magnanimous. He is mild. He is always clean. He is without possessions. He works for everyone's benefit. He is very peaceful. He is always surrendered to Krishna. He has no material desires. He is very meek. He is steady. He controls his senses. He does not eat more than required. He is not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy. He offers respect to everyone. He does not desire any respect for himself. He is very grave. He is merciful. He is friendly. He is poetic. And he is expert. He is silent. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Haribo. Okay. Guru Puja. Who wants to lead? Everyone except Samarth. Okay. Samarth can lead another time.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Vandamui Savadana Mate
Vandamui Savadana
Jahara Prasadhe Bhai E Bhava Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti ho jaha hote Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite te koriya kya Arara kori ho mane asha Arana kori ho mane asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वाशा जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वाशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जह होते अविद्या विनाश जयते वेद गाय जहर चरित वेद गाय जहर चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु लोकना लोकेर जीवाना लोकना लोकेर जीवाना जीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया दे हमारे पाद जया हा हा प्रभु करो दया दे हमारे पाद जया ए बेजास कुसुक्ति भुवाना जय प्रभुपाद पतित पवना जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा नाम ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नाम ओम विष्णुपदाय अया भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo
Jayo Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagachastata Satarashishi Shimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatani. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only desire is to From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Now, you have to, if you're reading way too fast, and it confuses everyone else. You have to go much slower. So don't try and lead by reading very fast. Just say every word very slowly and clearly. Otherwise, it just confuses everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, Arush, you can read first. You're second, somewhat, and then Shrestha will be third. Anybody else do homework?
The question was to read Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.23 purport and explain the line, one cannot enjoy material, illusory prosperity if he desires to return home back to Godhead. In order to explain this, you need to read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 8.57 to the end of Mahaprabhu's discussion with Ramananda Rai. This line means, if you have any material desires, or want to enjoy the pleasures of this material world, you cannot go back to Godhead.
Okay, go. Start over again. Read a little slower.
This line means, if you have any material desires, or want to enjoy the pleasures of the material world, you cannot go back to Godhead. The illusory prosperity like a house, car, money, stocks, and material assets will all be gone in due course of time. This illusory prosperity gives stress, anxiety, puts one in a vicious cycle of up and down, and win and lose. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that if someone sincerely wants to see the Lord, and at the same time wants to enjoy this material world, he is considered to be a fool only. Krishna helps the devotees who act like this by taking away all that they own in the material world. If the devotee again goes back to the position he was once at, the merciful Lord once again takes everything away. One should voluntarily accept all kinds of discomforts, which is called tapa. One should refrain oneself from sense enjoyment. A person who wants to engage in sense gratification can never realize God. One has to go through the penance, which is the devotional service of the Lord.
One has to go through what?
One has to go through the penance, which is the devotional
Penance?
penance.
P-E-N-S-E-N-C?
Yeah,
So it's pronounced penance.
penance.
Yes.
Which is the devotional service of the Lord, as only through devotional service one can approach the Lord. There is no difference between the penance, which is the internal potency of the Lord, and the Lord himself. When one engages in the devotional service of the Lord and dovetails one's material desires to serve Krishna, then their attachment to worldly enjoyments gradually goes away. This detachment is the result of perfect knowledge.
This detachment, right?
Yeah. One cannot be engaged in the penance of devotional service without being free from all sins. Only love and penance combined can please the Lord. and thus one is able to attain his complete mercy. He directs the sinless, and the sinless devotee attains the highest perfection of life. Sins are the reason why we are in the material world.
Sin, right?
Sins are the reason why we are in this material world. Therefore, one should try to be sinless. Brahmaji was sinless, and therefore he faithfully discharged the advice of the Lord, tapa, tapa. And the Lord, being satisfied with him, awarded him the desired result. After many births and deaths, a living entity realizes that Krishna is everything to them. There is a difference between a devotee who is seeking foolishly material happiness and the non-devotee who is dedicated completely to foolish material happiness. For the devotee, the Lord will take away all their prosperity so that they're devastated, but they have a chance to realize that this is the mercy of the Lord. We have learned this from Srila Prabhupada's life.
So one point to make here, and this is very important, that if the Lord takes everything away from his devotee, every material benefit away from his devotee, it's because the devotee has become attached to those benefits and is not using them all properly. And they're becoming an obstacle to the devotee making spiritual advancement. If the devotee uses everything in service of Krishna and is not attached and is happy to, he considers even his own body or her body as belonging to Krishna, and then Krishna doesn't have to take anything away because one is offering everything to Krishna. But as long as there's the attachment to things, and that becomes an obstacle to making spiritual progress. So in order to help the devotee, the Krishna will take everything away from the devotee so that obstacle is not there anymore. All right? He's not taking everything away. He didn't take everything away from Prahlad Maharaj or Dhruva Maharaj or any of these devotees because they were using everything in Krishna's service. It's only when those material, let's say, assets become an obstacle to making spiritual advancement will Krishna, by his mercy, take everything away from the devotee so the devotee completely surrenders to him. Go ahead.
One should engage in their occupational duty, render devotional service, and give the results of the service to the Lord. This is the perfection of life. The devotees who dovetail their material desires to serve Krishna, Krishna always protects them and will not take away their material prosperity and will continue to provide so that they can use it in the service of the Lord.
So that's the point. He will not take away their material so-called assets because they're using everything in his service. It's only when they become an obstacle to making spiritual advancement that he'll take away. Okay.
That's it.
Huh?
That's it.
That's it. Very good. Thank you. Haribol. Okay, Samarth, you're next.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
So the assignment was to read Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 9th chapter, 23rd verse. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, one cannot enjoy material illusory prosperity if he desires to return home back to Godhead.
If what? If he aspires to return home back to
If
Godhead?
he desires.
If he desires, okay.
To return home back to Godhead.
Okay, when it says he cannot enjoy, why? Because he's using all those things in Krishna's service. He's not trying to enjoy it himself. It's actually a positive statement, although it sounds negative.
Yes. So we have to explain what that means. And in order to explain this, you need to read Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 8.57 to the end of Mahaprabhu's discussion with Ramananda Rai.
Right.
If one wants to go home back to Godhead in this lifetime, he should perform the penance of devotional service. However, if one tries to enjoy material opulence while desiring to return home back to Godhead, he shall never fulfill his desire of going back to Godhead. For example, if you are watching a movie and at the same time trying to chant your rounds, you will not be able to focus and relish the bliss of chanting. This is because we are trying to enjoy the movie and not the chanting. Desires for temporary material happiness are foolish and are only desired by people who have no knowledge of the eternal and real happiness in the spiritual world. When we have material possessions that divert us from the path of devotional service and at the same time try to elevate spiritually, Krishna will take it away from us, so we will surrender unto him. A very good example of this is Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada was owning his business and was trying to become a pure devotee of the Lord by following his Guru Maharaj's instructions, Krishna made his business fail so he can succeed in his mission. Srila Prabhupada once said in the morning walk, "Unless you are free from the material desires, you cannot enjoy what is the celestial or spiritual bliss in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. If one has got material desires, he cannot enjoy." In Chaitanya Charitamrita
You cannot enjoy spiritual life. Yeah.
spiritual life. In Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19.175, it says, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that if one maintains within his heart the desire to enjoy the result of good work, or being embarrassed by the material world, the desire to get out of material entanglement, one will never be able to attain the transcendental mellows of devotional service.
What verse is that?
Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19.175.
19.175.
Yes.
Right. Good.
In other words, one must not desire material profit when rendering devotional service. Even if one follows all the 64 regulative principles, he cannot attain pure devotional service with a contaminated heart. All these points come to one conclusion, that if one desires material happiness when doing devotional service, he shall not attain the transcendental bliss of it. When Ramananda Rai was challenged by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to explain what is the goal of life, he took many attempts until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agreed. The following are some of the attempts that Ramananda Rai took. So, he first said, he quoted this verse, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the 4 Varnas and Ashramas." And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "This is external. You had better told me of some other means." So then Ramananda...
Okay, what I wanted you to do was one by one explain why he didn't accept it.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead. Just go ahead.
So he replies, "My dear son of Kunti, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give in charity, and whatever austerities you perform, all the results of such activity should be offered to me, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also external," Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Please proceed and speak further on this matter. Occupational duties are described in the religious scriptures. If one analyzes them, he can fully understand their qualities and faults, and then give them up completely to render service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a person is considered a first-class man. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again rejected this statement and said, "Go ahead and say something more." According to Bhagavad Gita, one who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state he attains pure devotional service unto me. After hearing this, the Lord, as usual, rejected it, considering it to be an external devotional service. He again asked Ramananda Rai to speak further. "My dear Lord, those devotees who have been thrown away by the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, and have therefore abandoned discussing empiric philosophical truths, should hear from the self-realized devotees about your holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities. They should completely follow the principles of devotional service and follow the 4 regulative principles. Surrendering themselves fully with body, words, and mind, they can live in any ashrama or social status. Indeed, you are conquered by such persons, although you are always unconquerable. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "This is all right, but still you can speak more on this subject." So, as long as there is hunger and thirst within the stomach, varieties of food and drink make one feel very happy. Similarly, when the Lord is worshipped with pure love, the various activities performed in the course of that worship awaken transcendental bliss in the heart of the devotee. Pure devotional service and Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can be attained only by paying one price, that is, intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. And hearing up to this point of spontaneous love, the Lord said, "This is all right, but if you know more, please tell me." A man becomes purified simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord, whose lotus feet carry the holy places of pilgrimage. Therefore, what remains to be attained by those who have become his servants? By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your permanent eternal servant, and always feel joyful to have such a perfect master? Hearing this from Ramananda Rai, the Lord again requested him to go a step further. Loving service to Krishna rendered in fraternity is the highest perfection. Neither those engaged in the self-realization of appreciating the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, nor those engaged in devotional service while accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master, nor those under the clutches of Maya, thinking the Lord an ordinary person, can understand that certain exalted personalities, after accumulating volumes of pious activities, are now playing with the Lord in friendship as coward boys. The Lord said, "This statement is very good, but please proceed further." This went on until Ramananda Rai explains about the pure love that Srimati Radharani had for Krishna and Krishna had for Radharani. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with this answer because Radharani's love is not tinged with material attachment. Until then, Ramananda Rai was quoting verses that are external, which means that they are material or on the peripheral level. In conclusion, we should always perform devotional service happily and without any material desires.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's just Hare Bol. Okay, yeah, good. All right. So, yeah, I wanted also, at least for the first 5 points, to know why Lord Chaitanya said it's external. So, if you want to further evolve your homework, you can do that tonight or today and present it tomorrow. Why he specifically rejects the first 5 and says that these are external. Okay? Because it's important to understand that, because normal people would say there's nothing wrong with that, what he says, and that's right in the Shastra, But no, there was a reason why he said these things are external. Okay, Hari Bol. Thank you. So Arush and Samarth, if you want to further elaborate on your homework, including the reasons why he said these first 5 points were external. Hari Bol.